Hey, good morning. Welcome to Hobby Evolution, episode 592. It's already Thursday. 3 likes on the board already. How about that? Good morning. Good morning. A lot of shipping yesterday, a lot of listing. I listed about 300 cards into my eBay store. So I'm pushing for 13,000, but then what happens is I sell a lot. And when I sell a lot, I have to ship a lot. And when I ship a lot, I can't list a lot. And then that number comes down. So I think I touched 12,500 listings, active listings yesterday, but I did sell a bunch. So that has come down. That's what we're going to talk about, eBay today. There were actually a couple Twitter conversations yesterday going on. I didn't dive into one of them. That was based on feedback, and I'll save that for another day because I have my own thoughts on feedbacks, especially when it comes to negative feedback. I can't remember. Now, I don't buy a lot on eBay. I sell, 99.9% of my transactions on eBay are through sales. So it's a very small sample size of when I leave negative of leaving feedback. And I honestly don't remember the last time I left a negative feedback. Sometimes I'll leave like a false positive when I see somebody that buys 10 items and doesn't pay for them. And then I look at their feedback and they've got, the last 12 positive feedbacks are for not paying. So that's a conversation for another day. Feedbacks on eBay. We've got a live and busy chat this morning. Good morning to Wake and Break Sports Cards. He is back home. Glad you made it safely. Enjoy that coffee. Jenny says, good morning, all. This will be a great episode. I hope so. Let's see. David is with us. Good morning. Victor, good morning to you. Diego, what is up? Ed is with us. Zach is here. Rich, Uncle Rich, good morning. Dropping in before beginning my day. Glad to have you. Mark Hoyle, good morning. Dan is with us. How to be a better seller. First step I think I need is to have a listing. Hey, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. Top of the morning to you. Top of the evening to you, George. I left one negative in 6 years because the guy canceled my order for not selling an auction for what he wanted for it. Otherwise, never left a negative. Cliff, good morning to you. DR is with us. While my notification worked, I will watch later, but I want to share, Bo. I converted 200 of my buy it now listings to auctions at a price I would be happy with if one bid and sold 40 plus cards. That is awesome. Now, last week, so that was my flash sale idea a couple weeks ago was, well, it started with auctions with DR moving some of his stale inventory. So I thought I'm going to try that. And I did 99-cent auctions and it failed miserably for me doing the 99-cent auctions. Maybe if I would have started at a price I would be happy with, maybe it would have resulted in better results. But I didn't. So I went with a flash sale, which really worked. But it's not like I can do a flash sale every week because then, like many people mentioned in the chat, they're just going to wait for next week's flash sale. So I don't want to do that. So the flash sale is going to be just that. It's going to be random and unannounced. So I think I'm just gonna suck it up and deal with it. Maybe I'll try auctions again with how Dan did this most recent run. And, if I would be happy with $5 on a card, I'll start it at $4.99 or whatever, and not do the 99-cent thing unless I'm okay with, a couple of 99-cent sales. So that's kind of how I'm going to approach. And the reason why is because on Wednesdays, typically, that's when the standard envelope postage fees are taken out of my account. And I see that managed payments for the day, and I have mine paid out daily. Just boop, 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 drops. So I'm usually pushing sales on Wednesdays. Last week it was delayed. I think it was maybe Thursday, which makes sense because last week was Memorial Day. So delayed a day makes sense. Which, by the way, remember last week when I was talking about garbage day, and my garbage day is not delayed on holiday weeks. like say Memorial Day, it fell on a Monday. My normal garbage pickup is Wednesday. So that's like we don't have a delay. Like my city that picks up the garbage doesn't have a delay. Here's the quirky thing, and where I live, it's all like random. And I've talked about this. Like my address is like a Madison suburb. I'll use air quotes suburb. Um, but the school district is Madison Public Schools. But in the address I have to my home is actually they have their own high school. But we're in the school district for Madison. Across the street, there's a row of about 8 houses that are in another suburb school district. They have their own high school as well. So I think I'm city of Madison with the garbage pickup, and then across the street, I don't know if it's like town of Madison or if it's one of the other small suburbs. So they have a different trash pickup. They were delayed last week, and I found that interesting because usually, like sometimes that's my alert, that's my alarm. Oh, it's garbage day because I see people across the street pushing their garbage cans out to the curb. And the people, just across the street, they had theirs out on Thursday. Mine was picked up Wednesday. Typically, their day is the same day as mine on Wednesday, but it was not last week. So I found that intriguing. So maybe it's just an anomaly where I'm at, where there's no delays in trash pickup. They just do double duty that week. Let's see, where are we at? Rich says already hit the like button, only 33%. Not enough, folks. Thanks, Rich. The positive is I don't get a negative as a seller. There you go. Wake and break. Thank you, Bo. I see a new shelf behind you. Yes, I put this. It's a new old shelf. It was actually a shelf that I was using in my unfinished area in the basement in the other room. We put new heavy duty shelving in there, so I have a bunch of these old plastic units. You can see even that top shelf, it looks like it's bowed a little bit, and actually it's not too. I think that's just the angle. So that's just going to be another shelf for inventory as I expand out, because I've been using this shelf here and then parts of this shelf for inventory. And with inventory, I don't like to stack boxes unlike this, but I don't really grab cards from these 2 boxes because they're multiple lots of pro debut and heritage minors. So I move less of those. But if it's 5,000 different singles, like this box, I'm in this box a lot. I'm in this box a lot. So and a lot of the boxes are going to be like those. So if it's a lot listing like that, I can just stack them. But if it's singles, then I need to just utilize 1 box per space on the shelf. DR says that was my biggest one-day sales volume from auctions or buy it now ever. That is awesome. Jenny says one of my be a better seller is I accidentally shipped a 2015 of the player that was supposed to be 2014. I refunded the buyer instantly, told him to keep the card. Correct. Absolutely. Yep. I have that issue arise. Actually, I had that problem happen just a couple weeks ago with a Cabrian Hayes, and this stuff happens. Like, people make mistakes, and we make mistakes as sellers, and buyers make mistakes. Like, especially when it comes to back in the day before standard envelope, when you sent PW, I constantly had, well, not constantly, but I would often have people say, hey, I never got this. And sometimes it would be simply a simple response of, I'm sorry to hear that. This was shipped out on June 6th. And then all of a sudden I get a message back. Oh yeah, it wasn't marked delivered on my eBay, so I overlooked it. Because people are going by their eBay, and it says, if it says shipped and it doesn't say delivered, they just assume that it wasn't delivered. Now that's why I like standard envelope tracking, because no, it's not perfect, and we're going to dive more into that here on today's show. It's not perfect, but it's much better than just throwing a stamp on an envelope and putting it in the mail. So I had a Cabrian Hayes issue happen where I sent, it was, I think, a 2022 Topps, and I sent the insert, and the buyer wanted just the base, the future stars. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll get the correct card shipped. you can keep the card. And he sent the card back. It's like, I didn't expect that. Like, he could have thrown it away for all I care. But sometimes you have great buyers like that. Let's see. Jenny says his furniture is closing in on him, trying to attack, or so John says. John says, too many likes for this soon in the broadcast. Don't be so eager. Wow, 18 already. Thank you. Herman, what is up? 608, good morning to you. We live in a strange area. 608 actually lives in the subdivision just to my east? Yes, east. It is. It is a very strange area. It's all gerrymandered. Jenny says, LOL. I always say I don't hit it till I know if I like it. George says, hit that dislike button. We'll balance things out. Bo's shelves are bowing. Cooter, good morning to you. Abraham, what is up? John is saying hi to Tom. Rich, have a great day. Jenny says, do you think you would have went full-time eBay if they never created standard envelopes and you had to do stamps on all and handwritten? Yes. In fact, I went full-time still using stamps. Now with handwritten, I don't know if I would, that would have been tougher. But when I went full-time, I was still doing stamps. I was buying them. In fact, I was making a little more money because I was spending less on postage because I was getting my stamped and my pre-stamped envelopes for 38 cents per stamped envelope, as opposed to 53 cents plus, 2.5 cents for the envelope. So the savings about 17 cents per package. That's why I could utilize 99 cents with free shipping. I would make about a nickel or a dime net profit on a 99-cent sale. Whereas now that additional 18 cents takes that profit margin away. So now it's a loss. So it's a loss leader in my eBay store. So yes, I did start going full-time, still using stamps. If I had to hand write things, I certainly couldn't do the volume that I do. So likely I would not be able to go full-time without the label printer. So yeah. So without the label printer, I don't think, without file exchange, without the label printer, it just wouldn't be feasible because the volume wouldn't be there to go full-time. Cooter says, I think the shelf is there because Bo builds a blanket fort after each. Love it. Man, I miss those days, right? When you were a kid building blanket forts. Those were fun times. Cooter nailed it. Just made my first sale off Instagram. Interesting. I have never attempted, and it's not some, I don't really know how to Instagram. I have an Instagram. I post every once in a while, but I'm not sure how it all works. So I'll stick to Twitter for my social media-ing. Let's see. George says, and then your stamp guy couldn't get them. Yeah, and that's why I had to try switched over to standard envelope from my stamp. My stamp guy was seeing a big increase. He wasn't able to get them, and his wholesale prices were going up. So it just didn't work. But even with the 17, 18 cent difference, it's, it still works because I have that peace of mind. And we're going to dive into standard envelope here in a little bit as we get through the chat. How much are stamps now? Not used one in years. That's a great question. I think, are they 59 cents at the post office? Now, standard envelope postage is 53 cents for 1 ounce, which is typically what your standard envelope PWE shipments are going to be. How much is a stamp? So it's 53 cents, which is it's 58 cents, but it's going to be increasing to 60 cents this year. So 58 cents for a stamp. So it's a nickel cheaper actually, and you get tracking while it's not perfect. Zach says 55 cents. It is. How much is a stamp for today? 58 cents. 58 cents. And it's going to rise to 60 cents later. I'm wrong. 58. Okay. Thank you. So, and then 2 ounce on standard envelope is 73 cents. 3 ounce is 93 cents. Let's see where we at in the chat. If Bo had to handwrite things, he wouldn't be able to keep tabs on his neighbor's garbage, right? Yeah, I'd be busy in my basement writing. I wouldn't know what garbage day is for my neighbors. Paul Carl Cards, what is up? Good morning to you. Mike asks, what label printer do you use? I use the Brother QL 1100, and I love it. It prints out both. You can print out both it holds 2x7s or 4x6s. I use 4x6s because I ran into issues with my local post office saying they were too small to scan, despite being scanned for a month. And then all of a sudden, I think a rogue employee just came along and said, nope, I don't want to scan these. And I got a pile of them on my doorstep. Went in there and I showed them, you've been scanning these for a month. Yeah, we have. We've been letting them slide, but they're too small to scan. But you've been scanning them for a month. They're too small to scan. So I gave up and splurged on the QL 1100. And now my QL 800 just sits over here collecting dust. Don't use it. So I use the QL 1100 and I use the 4x6 labels. Herman says, hobby Instagram turned me off on Instagram altogether. Bo, do you have a posted fire evacuation plan for your facility? Oh, don't out me, John. Don't out me. Paul says Burbank just started offering 99-cent shipping on eBay with ESE. Where are we at here? It's highly likely we see postage increase come January if gas doesn't come down. Costs a semi-truck driver $16K in gas to go from Washington to Minnesota. I don't think that's accurate. Not for a single truck. Not for a single truck. That's that's probably, Jenny, that's 16K. It could cost 16K right now for the entire trip, not in gas, but for the payment. I haven't been in that arena. So my previous job, I worked in transportation, and one of our biggest clients was hauling mail for one of the USPS's third parties. I think their largest third party. We did a lot of runs from California to Chicago, and the highest I saw it was you would pay a truck 10 to 12,000 to make a run. Now these are also like nonstop. Well, not nonstop. They'd have to gas up and all that, but basically straight through. They'd have to be team drivers. So you're not just paying one driver, you're paying two drivers. And it's roughly 2,000 miles from California from LA to Chicago. So right now, and that was when, diesel prices were a lot less than what they are. So I bet it does cost them 16,000 to make that run, not just in fuel, but the trip. That's how much it costs for that one load, and that's just one load. Can just think about that. One load of mail, 45,000 pounds, and it's probably a little less than that, 42,000, and sometimes they're as light as 35,000 because they're cubed out before they're scaled out with weight. So, because the packages are so light. So it fills up the truck before it fills the weight. So usually 35,000 pounds up to 40,000 pounds typically with mail. So yeah, I could totally see 16,000 for the trip. PWE is going up in July. Yes, it's going up 2 cents to 60 cents. But like Jenny says, we will see a January increase. I don't think we did see one in this past January, right? So I bet we will definitely see. I wouldn't be surprised if stamps go up to 65 cents in January. Just based on the post office is paying $16,000 for mail, just a truckload of mail from Washington to Minnesota. You can buy pre-stamped envelopes for well under face value. I have not looked into it lately. My stamp guy ran out, so I haven't checked on eBay. It was like super easy, but I do like the I what I like about standard envelope, even though I'm paying, 17 cents per, and that adds up significant amount when you're moving volume. But I have that peace of mind of tracking, and if something doesn't show up, which I promise I'm gonna get into the topic at hand here shortly, although we've scratched the surface a bit. Um, you have that peace of mind, and you know, I know the storyline has always been eBay always sides with the buy, for the last what, probably 20 years. Or in the Wild West days of the late 90s, it was buyer beware on eBay. And now in the last 15 to 20 years, it's been seller beware because eBay's always sided with the buyer in instances. But it's starting to they're starting to take that turn, and sellers are starting to get more protection. Standard envelope is one of those, and I like that peace of mind, protection, the insurance claim, which I'll post here in the chat in just a bit as well. Let's see. John says trucks charge us 12K New York to Las Vegas. I can totally see that. I can totally see that. Um, and again, I haven't been in it for almost a year now. It's been 9 months since I was in it. But I can totally see 12,000 from New York to Vegas right now. That's what I heard off the Minnesota Trucker Association last week. I don't know, semis. That was probably the overall cost, not just the fuel. Um, let's see. That's all in. Gas higher, but so is demand for drivers. Tandem. Yep, that totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. Let's see. And the post office paying starting wage $19.52. So much increases all around the board. The local post office that I go to now, they did have signs like on the door, and I think it was similar starting wages to get employees. Now they have like a little kiosk. It's not a kiosk, it's a table as you walk in the door, and it's basically like applications, like fill out the application. We want you to work for us. So yeah, and of course you see that everywhere. Every business around here, at least, has a hiring sign. Let's see. If the PO was smart, they would make a large jump in price, excusable with the market. They are bankrupt. Stamps didn't change this year, but package and flat rate prices did. Okay, that is right. That is correct. We did see an increase in some package rates. Cooter says, as much as people complain, spending 60 cents to have something picked up and delivered across the country in a couple of days is really quite amazing to me. Isn't that something? Like and it's just human behavior. Like, I can't believe I'm paying 60 cents. And I think it's because we harken back to the olden days. And I remember when stamps were 19 cents and now it's three times. It's like Cooter says, like, think about it. I can walk to the end of my driveway. What is that? 20 steps, 25 steps. I can put an envelope. In that little box at the end of my driveway with a little stamp for 58 cents right now. A man or woman comes and they open that door to that box and they take that envelope, and then a couple days later it magically appears halfway across the country or all the way across the country for 60 cents. That's a damn good deal. I agree with Cooter. Now, if they raise the price of stamps a dime, it's still a good deal, but it's going to be a little like, oh shit, I'm paying a lot more in postage than I was last year or a few months ago. USPS sends a lot of mail via airplanes. In fact, it has priority over luggage. First class mail travels in style. And it's funny how so the priority mail often goes via cargo plane or plane. Most of the first class mail, and we had some rough situations. Like we had an instance where a driver hit somebody. It was suicide by truck on the interstate. It was first class mail, and it's a really that's a delicate situation. Like that's when you really have to, learn how to handle critical thinking and um like you've got somebody who was killed. Now you also have a driver who killed somebody. Like, I mean, the person jumped in front of them, but they have that. Like, that's on their mind. Like, I don't even. I mean, I words can't describe how I've never been in. I hope to God none of us are in that situation. But you also have the other side where we've got to get this first. This is first class mail. We're talking like your paychecks and it's sitting on the side of the interstate because there's a police investigation. So it's there's some tricky situations. Let's see. Zach says I emailed the seller for a card I earned on eBay. Tracking label created in the EDD past. That's estimated delivery date. They didn't respond to my email. Not an official claim, but refunded me. At least send a note. I agree. I think I'm going to get into that. Maybe tomorrow we'll touch on like part 2 of eBay sales because um, there was another thread on Twitter yesterday regarding leaving feedback in a similar situation. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole because I do have my thoughts on that. My PO shuts down during lunch since they don't have the staff to have lunch shifts. Ouch. Wow. I don't think we're in that. I just typically drop off a lot of the stuff. I just drop in the blue box. Especially if there's like a line, it's like I don't want to deal with people in the post office. So I just drop it in the blue box. Jenny adds, communication is so important. USPS is a service. It's supposed to operate at a deficit. Where's the like button for Cooter's comments today? He's the star of the day. Cooter star of the day. Zach says, what is really amazing? A fax machine still amazes me. And the only time a fax machine gets used is on NCAA signing day. We actually, and that was literally the only time. I worked in college athletics for 3 years. That was the only time the athletics fax machine was used, was on at least in the time that I was there. And maybe there was a fax sent here or there, but that was often the joke. Like, this is literally the only day that we utilize this fax machine. Bring back fax machines. We can fax our cards instead of mail them like NFTs. What is up, boom slang? Cooter says, and it's even better when the envelope has baseball cards in it. Heck yeah. I just collect the scans of the cool cards I get so I can sell them. Ricardo says, damn, that's terrible. Yes, it is. IRS only deals in fax, no emails. Interesting. Well, and that makes sense from a security standpoint. So let's dive into the topic at hand, how to be a better eBay seller. And the reason I wanted to bring this up today, I think it's important every day, but it was more top of mind because of a thread yesterday on Twitter. And it was actually originally posted by Rex. He runs the sports card shop at Moco in Michigan. And his handle is @_sports card shop. So his original tweet was actually directed to eBay, but then he tagged in a few people, myself, Mike Summer, and I even watched the breaks. So his original tweet, hey, ask eBay, if an item shipped USPS, PWE with tracking, shows received, but the buyer didn't actually receive it, which party is responsible for following up with the post office to resolve? And then he tagged us as PWE shippers. He adds, PWE shippers, please feel free to respond. So first, I'm going to tackle the question at hand, and then the entire thread kind of got derailed in several different directions. So I'm gonna tackle the question at hand. And my response, and just for that, I will say, can I find my response? There was a lot of responses. Oh, my original response was kind of both. And I go on to tweet, and I'm going to try to elaborate on this. Kind of both. If it's only been a couple days since Mark delivered, I will tell the buyer to give it a few days after Mark delivered. And then I add, if it's been more than a week, I, in parentheses, as the seller, will just issue a refund. So I want to piggyback and give this more context. So the reason I say kind of both, and I'll just start with that, do a little breaking down the sentences. The reason I say kind of both to this situation is the buyer really can't do anything outside of communicate with the seller. Okay. And the reason I say that is standard envelope is not the ESE, the standard envelope through eBay is not perfect. And it's certainly not ideal for the buyer, especially in these situations, because standard envelopes are not tracked like your bubble mailer. They are tracked at sorting facilities. They are not marked delivered by the mailman outside your front door. They are scanned at a sorting facility at your destination, the closest sorting facility to your mailbox, basically. So they could be scanned. For me, it's likely going to be scanned somewhere in Madison at our local Madison sorting facility. And then when it gets scanned, it's going to be scanned through the machines because it's scanned through machines. They don't have they don't have like a iPhone scanner. Each mailman doesn't. So it's scanned in Madison, and then Madison, it's going to get routed to Verona, which is where my address is. It's going to go to the Verona post office, and then it might sit there for a day or two, depending on how much mail they have. And then it's going to finally get on a truck, and it's going to be delivered to me, which could be the same day, could be the next day, could be 2 or 3 days later. And I've had some that show up 2 weeks later. And I've had buyers say the same, like, "Hey, you refunded me. I'm going to send the card back." And it's like, just keep the card. Well, can I refund you? No, just keep the money, keep the card, and come back, buy another card from me. So that's why it's not ideal. So in this situation, I say kind of both. And how I mean that is for the buyer needs to basically communicate with the seller. There's not much the buyer can do in this circumstance, because if you go to the post office and you present them with this tracking number, the E is it ESUS? I should probably know that. The standard envelope tracking to the post office, the clerk is probably going to be like, that's an invalid tracking. That's not a USPS tracking number. And then if you're not, as the buyer, not knowing how the standard envelope tracking works, you're now going to be upset thinking the seller gave you a bad tracking number and he's trying to scam you. So I wish there was more education on the program. How that could be, I don't know. Because it's really difficult to get everybody on board, and especially if it's just a casual buyer, they may only buy a few cards here and there. And how do you reach them? It's a difficult task. So I think it just comes down to you as a seller educating the buyer. So in this situation, let's go back. And so that was my first kind of both. As the buyer, there's not much that they can do because the clerk at the post office might not know and likely not going to know what that tracking number is because they don't deal with it. It's done at the sorting facilities, not at the local post offices. So let's get to the chat real quick before I get super lost. Dave Pearson is with us. What is up, Dave? Bo, I wonder how you go away for a weekend and come back to hundreds of orders. How do you get them out on time? Well, one thing I do is I have a longer handling time, which I'm sure probably hurts, the algorithm and all that. So I have a 3 or 4 day handling time. So that gives me a little buffer. And then when I get home, I just have to put my head down and grind it out. So, but I've got it down to, I'm pretty efficient where I can hammer them all out and get caught up. Let's see. Derailment is common on Twitter, Ed says. It is. And a lot of that reason is number one, I'm thinking one way and the other person may be thinking another way, and we're really not. And it's hard to get on the same page in 140 or 280 characters on Twitter. So that's why I want to give my responses and my answers a little more context here this morning. Paul Carl says, I think it's the seller's responsibility. That's just good service and marketing. We're here to service customers, so do it well or not at all. And that's my message. And Paul is much more concise with it. But yes, that's exactly what it is. And I kind of mentioned that, and I probably derailed the Twitter conversation myself with some of my responses, which I'll try to dive into here as well. Jenny says, I got scammed for $1,000 on Amazon by one of their sellers. I refuse to use Amazon now. Granted, it was big dollar. It is the matter. Don't leave a bad taste in the buyer's mouth of the eBay platform. And that's actually the last comment you said. I was actually thinking about that this morning. It's like you were reading my mind this morning. Because that is when we have these instances arise, and if you as a buyer don't get your card and the seller acts like a jagoff, it gives you a bad taste in your mouth on eBay, and then that gets spread. And I read this by a couple people, and actually I think Rex even mentioned it. I don't like dealing with eBay because it's too much of a hassle, and I think that's because of situations like this where you're dealing with a bad seller, and we deal with bad buyers as well. And in the thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions I do, I don't go on eBay and celebrate, a great buyer on every one. But if I have a bad seller, I want to bring it to the attention of the community, the hobby community, to beware. And so we get blinded by all of these bad eBay stories, failing to realize that's just 1%. The other 99%, there's no need to hey, STX77 was an awesome buyer. He paid right away. We don't do that. It would just be a bunch of noise. But if STX77, and I apologize if anybody's user is STX77, if STX77 is a jagoff and if he's trying to scam you, you're going to go to Twitter and be like, hey, put this guy on your block list. And it's like, man, I see a lot of these tweets. A lot of people are having problem buyers, and it's not. It's kind of like we see a lot of Bowman mega boxes on the shelf. The print run is no different from last year. There's just less demand. They're not overproducing it. People just aren't buying it. Jenny says we create education by, as sellers, just giving the buyer a message, and then they know for future. So if I explain to the buyer, they now won't have to ask Bo in the future. And handling time is only business days, no weekends or holidays. That is correct. So sales on Thursday, I have until Tuesday to ship. So that helps as well. And I hope, and actually, I was always a little concerned about extending that handling time out because, a lot of us, we want our stuff right away. And sometimes it's just hard to do that when you're a one-man band. But I've only had like one issue. I had somebody buy some cards and we just canceled the order. It was 2 days. And he's like, hey, are you going to ship these? And I'm like, I apologize. They're going to be shipped out tomorrow. And I said, my handling, and he said something else. And I'm like, my handling time is 4 days. And he says, well, it's up to 4 days. Well, yes. Sometimes I'm going to ship same day. Sometimes I'm going to ship in 3 days. Sometimes it might be up to 4 days. Unfortunately, it's 3 to 4 days for you. And that's just how it is. And I probably lost that customer, but we can't bend over backwards for every single buyer. And that's kind of going off on another tangent, but I'm going to do my best when I have people, and I will. Squeaky wheel does get the grease. If I have somebody that reaches out to me and says, hey, when's this card going to ship? They want the card. So I'm going to ship it out. And I'm going to give it prior, because I basically, when I go to ship cards, it's from order time. So I'm going to go down to the bottom because those were ordered first, and then work my way back up to the most recent purchases. But if somebody, it's like, oh, it's been 2 days, even though I have 4 days handling, they've reached out, they want their cards. I'm going to bump them up, and okay, I better go ship this guy's out because he might leave bad feedback or have a poor experience and not come back as a customer. So sometimes the squeaky wheel does get the grease. And it's also how you communicate. If they're going to be an a-hole about it, it just might be get back in line. and welcome to the block list. Um, let's see. I'm good with your shipping time. I care more about a deal than you being Amazon Prime. Thank you for that. I can only hit the button once, sir. Sellers, please stop using Scotch tape. Painter's tape is the best way to use painter's tape. I agree. Wake and break. There's nothing worse than this is the absolute word when people use this on top loaders. And the reason I say it's not because of the top. And hear me out. I'm not saying this because of the top loader. And reason I don't care about the top loader. I care about getting my card out of that damn top loader when the top loader's covered in this freaking what is this? Shipping tape, packaging tape. And then and I chew my fingernails, so I'm trying to, and then I have to use scissors, and now I've got sharp objects near a flimsy piece of cardboard. So, amen, wake and break, amen. Oh, the tape, that's a whole nother, exactly. Let's see. Wake and break says, I have so many unopened packages in mail. I'm shocked how people send items. It's amazing the creativity in packaging. Why are we using tape at all? Team bags eliminate the need for tape. That's a whole nother debate. I am team blue tape, team painter's tape. I do use I have a whole stack of team bags here as well. So before I get off on tape versus no tape, let's go back to the tweet. Again, the original comment tweet was, if an item shipped USPS PWE with tracking shows received, but the buyer didn't actually receive it, which party is responsible for following up with the post office to resolve? And unfortunately, in my, like I went into earlier, I said kind of both. It really is on the seller. And what's difficult is with standard, and we're talking standard envelope only. This is not bubble pay. This is not a box. This is not $1,000 box. This is not, a bubble mailer with tracking. This is standard envelope in a plain white envelope or whatever envelope is used using the standard envelope postage method. Basically, and what I said kind of both. If it's only been a couple days since Mark delivered, I will tell the buyer to give it a few days after Mark delivered. The reason why, which I touched on earlier, these are only scanned at sorting facilities. They're not scanned at your mailbox. So when they say they're scanned delivered, it's not actually delivered. It's scanned at your local sorting facility. So it's probably going to be a day delayed, sometimes two. And I've seen it been a couple of weeks because it gets lost somewhere between that sorting facility and your mailbox. So if it's only been a day or two, I mean, I'll get messages constantly. Hey, this didn't show up. And it's, it was marked delivered at 11 a.m. and they're reaching out to me at 1 p.m. I just checked the mail. It's not there. Give it a day. And so I explain the process. It's standard envelope with tracking. They're scanned at sorting facilities. I need to put this in my notepad and just copy and paste it instead of typing it out each time. That's how often it occurs. And, wait a day, give it a day or two, give it 2 days. And, if you haven't received it by the end of the week, let me know. At that point, what do I do? How is it handled if it's been a week since it's been marked delivered? This is where it's gray, and there's not really, for myself, I don't have a standard operating procedure for handling this. It's case by case. It is a gray area. It depends on the communication. If somebody comes in and they're sketchy with how they are communicating, I'll pop their eBay username into Google and see if they pop up on the bad eBayer lists on various internet forums. That does happen. It's not it's common, but it's not very common. But every once in a while, you'll see that pop up, and there's a history behind that. But if and this actually happened. In fact, I just issued a refund yesterday. A buyer bought an old 70s Henry Bibby card, and he said, hey, it was marked delivered. I waited a few days, and I still haven't received it. I knew he was knowledgeable about how standard envelope worked. He was very communicative, which I appreciate. And we waited a few days, And, it's like, wait a few days. If not, just open up a claim. And so through that, uh, there's 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 a couple options you can run with there. In this instance, I'm just like, I'm not going to worry about because you can protect yourself as a seller if you feel that the buyer is being shady. So here it's pick your own adventure with this situation. Buyer, you sold a card for $5 and it shows marked delivered, but you don't believe the buyer. You think he actually got it and he's trying to get his money back. Maybe there's some shadiness with his communication. Maybe he's showing up as a bad eBayer on internet forum, Blowout, or wherever. So you don't believe him. And I've had this. I've had like this is kind of sketchy. So how I handle that is have them open the case, or they might have just opened the case automatically without communicating. And you pop in that tracking number. And so eBay will likely side with you as the seller because, hey, you did ship this. It was delivered. Your end of your responsibility was met. You successfully shipped and delivered this package to your buyer. Now, and this is kind of where it went all over the place because some people were claiming, and I didn't think eBay, and one person said they ended up filing like a claim through eBay after that to get their money back, and it worked. So it's kind of a gray area, but you as the seller, that's an option you can take. Have them open a case and put that tracking number in, and you'll probably get you probably won't have to issue the refund. Then it's kind of on the buyer. But if it's somebody that has been communicating with me and it's like, okay, they're on the up and up, I'm not going to put them through that process to make them do the extra step of having to go back to eBay and file a second claim, or, hey, it does say delivered, but I didn't receive it. So in that case, like with the Henry Bibby card this week, I knew the buyer. I assumed the buyer's being legit. And I think it was like a $2 card or $1.70. I'm just going to eat the cost. He was being a good buyer. He was communicating well. So I just sent the refund. He didn't receive it, sent the refund. So that's how I handled that situation. But again, the next situation that arises, I may handle it differently. I may actually put the tracking number in and say, hey, eBay, I shipped, it was delivered, so it all comes down to customer service. And, and I'm going to flip this around. And I flipped this and I used I think I used a poor analogy, which kind of derailed the conversation on Twitter. And I said, let's see if I can find the tweet. Let's see. Trying to find one of the original comments. Okay. So it says, unfortunately, this is on the buyer. You have to communicate with the post office, typically in person. You'll need to file a lost item claim. They will then do an audit on their end to determine which carrier delivered it and where. And this is kind of all wrong because if you communicate with the post office, and again, we're talking standard envelope only with PWE, they're not going to know. You can file a lost item claim. That's an avenue. I don't know if that's going to get you anywhere, but you can do that as the seller. And I don't think I've ever had a buyer, maybe in an instance, I've had a buyer do it. But you should, as a seller, I think that's on you. And that's just me. Like, I think that's general customer service where if a buyer claims they didn't receive it, if you want to open a lost mail claim, I think that should be on the seller. And I turned this around and I said, is that how if you buy something on Amazon and it's on you to go try to find your package? No, you're going to reach out to Amazon and say, hey, where's my package? And I think that comment may have derailed a little bit because Amazon and standard envelope PWE is a little different. So let's just flip it around and let's take Amazon, Target, Walmart out of the equation and let's flip it on You bought a $12 card. We came to find out through this Twitter thread, Rex was actually the buyer in this situation, and he didn't receive the card. It was a $12 card sent standard envelope in a PWE. Now, turn this around, and you're the buyer. Excuse me, you're the buyer in this situation. You didn't receive your $12 card, and it's like, well, it says it was marked delivered. Are you going to be okay with doing all that work to find your card? Probably not. I don't think you would. I think you would say, I bought this card from a seller. It's the seller's responsibility to get me that card, and I didn't get the card. So we need to flip it around and put yourself in the buyer's shoes. And at the end, and we had a second person at the end say, trying to find this. It was all over the place, this chat. So I'm just trying to pick out. So Sportsology says, this happened to me and I lost out. The buyer was just able to show it was delivered, but it was delivered somewhere else in the world, not to me. And I think, he meant the seller was just able to show it was delivered. So my response, because I wanted a little more clarity, did you open an item not received case? The response was yes. And again, he is the buyer. He opened a item not received case. And they, meaning eBay, closed it quickly when they showed the package was delivered. I'm paraphrasing. Even though it wasn't my address. My thought was the seller sent an empty package and keeps reselling the card. So then I followed up. You didn't get the refund or the card ? And this is why, and this is what I said, this is why in some, perhaps many instances, it's important for a seller to exude good customer service. Not all buyers are trying to scam sellers on eBay, because we had not only the original post in question by Rex at the sports card shop. He's the buyer in this situation. It says his package was delivered. He didn't receive it. And then we have another Twitter user say, yes, this happened to me. I filed a claim. eBay sided with the seller. I lost the card and did not get refunded. So this does happen. And I think we just kind of assume everybody's out to get us on eBay. And that's not the case, because sometimes, I had to open a case on a PWE, and I think this was before standard tracking. It was a Brennan Davis card. It was the mustache, the 89 Topps insert. I really wanted that card, and I have a few copies now. I never ever did get that card. I trusted that the seller sent it, and again, this is just with a stamp, no tracking, and it's like, hey man, and I waited like 2 or 3 weeks because I sell a lot of PWEs. I know how it works. I waited 2 or 3 weeks and I popped in. I'm like, hey, I just want you to know I haven't received this card yet. I'm willing to wait. It's not like I need this card today. So I'll give it another week, but it's been almost a month. Just wanted you to be aware. He was really good. And, I followed up a week and a half later, and I'm like, hey, it never showed up. And I was out, it was like $2, $3, and he refunded me. And I never did end up receiving that card. And that was that 20, I think that was in 2020, like fall of 2020. So it's probably sitting somewhere. It's probably behind a bin in some random post office in Ohio. Or it was in one of those many stolen mail bags that post office employees have been caught taking. Let's see. I'm going to go back up because I kind of went on a rant here. Okay, so where are we at here? Let's see. Wake and Break says, I spend more energy fighting scotch and shipping tape. Honestly, I'm taking a break from buying until they stop using tape. Tomorrow we will talk tape. Let's see. Wake and Break says, Bo, please talk about these USPS scammers another day. It's getting crazy. They think they have the power to open, inspect, and retake my packages. I'm going to change my name and mailing address. Ricardo says, I'm going to add that to my listing pertaining to eBay envelope program. That's actually a good idea, adding it into the description. Right now, my description just says shipped PWE. And every once in a while, I'll get people, what does PWE mean? So it should be a little more clarity. It helps. I've learned in life in general, I've learned that, and I'm guilty. So before I say this, I am guilty of not following instructions. I don't follow instructions very well. So I feel like I can share my thoughts on this because I am one of the first guilty of not reading. Now, when it comes to breaks, when I enter a break for like Bowman Cubs team break, pick your team, I'm reading that description like 3 times over because I want to make sure all cards ship and there's not like some little small print, all card ship, but the base, we're keeping the base, or the base is separate in another, you have to buy another spot for the base. So I read those descriptions like I'm reading a contract to whatever, something important. But in general, if I'm going to just buy a card, and it's bit me before, and I bought, and I've probably shared this story before. This is several years ago. I bought off Craigslist. I bought this big lot of like 400,000 cards, mainly because it had like thousands and thousands of 78 through like 81 tops. So I was going to build some sets. Now it was all like the stars were picked out. So I was going to have to buy the stars. What I learned, it was like my idea at the time, and I was slowly getting back into the hobby. What I learned at the time was it was basically what I would spend on the rookies from 78 and, the Nolan Ryan and the whatever else. Basically, once I bought those and sold the set, it was like break even, or I might even lose money on the project. So that quickly came to a halt. Where was I going with this story? Now I can't remember because I went off on that tangent. Where was I at? What the hell was I talking about? 78 to 81 tops. Reading descriptions. I had to read Ricardo's comment again. So as I started to build these sets. And I bought a 1978 tops, and I don't know if it was the Dale Murphy or whatever rookie. It was one of the four player rookie cards, and I bought it. I didn't read the description. I just bought it, and it arrived, and it was a magnet. It was a picture of the card on a freaking magnet, on a 2.5 by 3.5 inch magnet. Like, what the hell is this? So, I'm pissed because I thought I just got duped on eBay. And this is why you read descriptions, because it was described as a magnet. And guess what I did? I sucked it up and threw the magnet in a box and went about my day because I made the mistake. I didn't want a refund. I didn't want to return it. I thought this was a card because I didn't read the instructions. Sometimes you have to take responsibility for your actions. So yes. So that was just my thought on, sometimes it's like, why should I waste my time? And we had this, and this goes back to what I really learned about people not reading was my former job. And I've actually talked about my former job twice today. So in my former job, it was in logistics and transportation. And you would think, working in logistics, that you would have great communicators. Not the case. Probably the worst communicators that I've in a professional setting ever. And yes, I was guilty many occasions of being a crappy communicator. But anyway, there was a big divide between sales and operations. I was on the sales side, and the operations side would complain about the sales guys. Well, the sales guys never put instructions, and we never know what it is. So many, many times, and there's usually like one guilty party that was the loudest about, we need more details. If I hear the word details one more time, because it gives me flashbacks of these conversations that I had, because it made me want to like pound my head on the desk. Details. We need more details. And then you put freaking details, you write out a paragraph of details. And it takes up more than 2 lines. But if you don't have the more than 2 lines of detail, not everything is in there. So then if they make the mistake, well, the details weren't in there. But if the details are in there, well, they take up too much space. So there was always an out. Details. We need details, but we don't read the details. Okay, off that soapbox. Let's see. And truthfully, if you're selling under $20 cards and can't afford to refund a buyer if a mistake happens and you can get refunded from eBay, you should not be selling. Mean to say, but true. Absolutely. I agree. And here's the thing. Like, standard envelope is not like the end-all be-all solution to cheap shipping. You get what you pay for. And if you don't like the service that standard envelope presents, well, you have another option. It's paying $3.50 or $4 for a bubble mailer with tracking. You get what you pay for. Do you want standard envelope to be better? There's a better option. It's a bubble mailer. If you want standard envelope to be similar to bubble mailer with tracking, we can get that, and it's going to cost us $4 per envelope. It costs a lot of money for those scanners that they have for those track. That's why it costs $3.50 to $4, because they're paying employees X amount of money. They're paying $16,000 to get a load of mail from Washington to Minnesota. And on top of that, they're paying for all of that technology so that you can track your package every step of the way. It costs money. So if you want better tracking, pay up. You get what you pay for. Ricardo says, best way I handle it is to explain to the buyer to be patient. After 1 week, have them open a case. And because it's an eBay program, both buyer and seller were refunded. 90% of the time it works. 100% of the time. Morning to card hobbyist, baseball card curmudgeon. What is up? Why is the UPS snooping through our mail? I can only assume they are interested in sports cards. I don't know the answer to that. I see some stories pop up. I don't think it's new. I don't think it's a new instance of this happening. Where are we at here? TD Sports Cards is with us. What is up? Matt Cullen, good morning to you. After sending a refund on an item, USPS did not get to the buyer. I was given neutral feedback, and that sucks. And I'm going to talk about feedback tomorrow, I think, because there was another Twitter conversation. I stayed out of that one. It's like, I don't want to get off on another tangent. So we can touch on feedback tomorrow. Jenny says, Matt, you should be able to contest that. Yes, actually, by the way, Matt, there is a way. Shoot, where in the heck? I need to put this on my bookmark. What is this? That is not it. There is a link within eBay to contest feedback. I actually had like 7 neutrals and a couple negatives. And it has to be within the last 90 days, I think. I was able to successfully get one removed. I think it was a negative because it was like an item. I didn't get the item, but it's like, well, you got an instant refund. And for some reason they wiped. I mean, I would think that would be a case where they would leave the negative feedback, but it's like, hey, I'll take it. But some of the other, like, I had neutrals that just said, okay. And so I thought, like, well, this is certainly, there's no context behind this. They wouldn't remove those. It's like, was it okay good? Was it okay bad? And usually when I see those pop up, I reach out to the buyer and I say, hey, was everything okay? You left a neutral feedback. Was everything okay? And of course there's crickets. So yes, like Jenny says, you should be able to contest that. Let's see. I did contest and ask for a revision. They changed their wording, but kept it neutral. Interesting. Let's see. Wake and Break says, I'm still missing a case of 89 Donruss I purchased from eBay in San Jose and have no contact info. It's been too long. My mistake. I was traveling for card shop, card shows, and games. Lance says, in those cases of non-receipt, they will have dispute rights with the financial institution they paid through. I do card dispute for a living. Interesting. I also purchased 2 cards in Tennessee. It was old 2 cars in Tennessee. It was old MG parts cars. But again, my lack of follow-up. Little MGs, very nice. I when I was growing up, my dad was a gearhead, and my when I turned 16, my car was going to be a Fiat Spider convertible. It never came to be because car parts were so damn expensive for those Fiats. Um, and it's probably good because I don't think a 16-year-old should be driving a little Italian sports car. Um, but yeah, the old Fiat Spider was a 72. And that came about, the reason why um, was because he had a coworker who came on some hard times and had basically a parts car. And my dad got a great deal on it. And then we found, like, locally, found another. This one was a 75, and it was like yellow, bumblebee yellow or whatever. So that's what he wanted to paint it. And then we started ordering. There was a Bayless, Georgia, I remember, was where the parts company was that we could order parts from, and sunk a lot of money into it, and then ended up just selling it all. So my first car was a Pontiac, a 1989 Pontiac Sunbird that was a hand-me-down from my mom. Let's see. Jack Morris, John says, Murphy was 77, even though he was also on a 78 4-player card. It might have been it was a 4-player card. I don't know if it was Jack Morris. I think it was Dale Murphy, though. But it was one of those 4-player cards. Let's see. I take ownership and responsibility for sure. My wife always corrects my purchases, usually 2, 3, 4 in the morning. We get a good laugh to purchase, and I think I'm the one getting one thing and I receive. Bo unhinged on the next Sally, Jesse, Raphael. Something else, I get all fired up, and then my better half says, reread the listing, and we laugh together. Where are we at here? Let's see. Cooter says, as a set builder, the worst is when you double buy a card. I hate that not as a set builder, but as a team buyer, as a team collector. When it comes to, like, pre-war card, or not pre-war cards, but that's why I'm hesitant on buying T206 cards, because I have so many, and there's so many variations, and it's like, well, especially with Joe Tinker, I bought a few Joe Tinkers, and it's like, now I don't want to buy any more Joe Tinkers until I actually, and I haven't, like, put down what I actually have, and that's something that I really need to do, because I'm probably passing up good deals on vintage, because I just assume I have it, and I don't want to double buy a card. Cooter just did it this week with a 66 Dick Hauser short print. Pricey mistake, but I won't return either because it was my mistake. Definitely figure it's a blessings to bless the seller. I figure the money could always be replaced, but honestly, my buying needs to stop temporarily. My house is flooded with cards. Got to have perspective with the USPS. They do a decent job handling, tracking millions of moving pieces every day. Most definitely. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, where Cooter mentioned it. 60 cents. You walk down to the end of your driveway, put an envelope in the box, and it magically gets delivered 2,000 miles away, and you pay 60 cents. Pretty good deal. Maybe Bo should start a Maury-style live stream. Are you the cards daddy? Let's see. Wake and Break says the USPS mailman is a great friend of the family. David, what is up? Good morning to you. My one and only negative feedback from a buyer said they received a different card, which I never even had or was selling for that matter. I had a situation, and sometimes this comes down to, like, default feedbacks being left, where I've had a feedback, a negative, and I reach out and I'm like, hey, I think one was like, it was like shipped only in a penny sleeve. And I'm like, I know that wasn't me. So I reached out and I'm like, hey, this was shipped in a penny sleeve and top loader or card saver, whatever it was. And they're like, oh, that was the last purchase I made. I'm sorry. Either he confused the two, or it was the same feedback he left on the previous transaction. And so he wiped it away. Let's see. Couldn't get eBay to remove it and just gave up. Yeah. So my first, when I see those, I'll reach out to the seller. And I don't know if you did in that case, but reach out to the seller and say, hey, what happened here? And if there's no response, then take it to eBay. But in that case, like, eBay's not, because eBay's a third party in that. And it's like, well, it's a he said, she said, and there's no proof for either one. So eBay doesn't know, and they just have to take the buyer's word for it, which is unfortunate, because I've been in that same situation, and it sucks. But you can't blame eBay because they don't know. Bearded Bookworm, what is up? Good morning to you. Just getting off work and popping in to say hi. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This The Break says, my house got flooded with cards also, so I made a John Boat out of cards. Very nice. So basically, the message for today, not everybody on eBay that claims they didn't receive a card you sold them is trying to scam you. They're are legit. I've personally had cards never get to me. We saw 2 instances through that Twitter thread that we spoke of that said, they were the buyer in the situation and it was delivered, but they never received it. So it happens. It does happen. And so hopefully that, that's customer service goes a long way, but you can't blindly just trust everyone. If something seems a little hinky, is that a right slang term? Hanky, hinky, kinky? I don't know. If something seems up and you're not aware, maybe this person's not on the up and up, do a little due diligence, check their feedback, Google janky. There you go, janky. Check their feedback, Google them, check the bad eBay seller list, which I think you can just find on Google, usually in forums, and just cross-reference. And, maybe they are out to take you for a couple bucks, maybe not. I always tend to be a little more trusting. But there are several instances where it's like, this guy is up to no good. And, sometimes when you get that feeling, it can be right. And sometimes it's wrong. Paul Carl says, I had one guy send a few bucks, had a problem. I refunded and apologized immediately. A few days later, he spent $100 plus with me and was super happy. Absolutely. Porch Pirates, you need to bookmark Urban Dictionary. Once you turn 40, it helps you understand the modern terminology. Yes, I do. So that's what I had for today. Thanks for tuning in. All over the place. That's typically how we roll here. So thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow we'll talk a little more eBay. Tomorrow we'll talk feedbacks, and I'll look up the thread that was on Twitter yesterday regarding a negative feedback situation, how it was handled, how I would have handled it. So we'll touch on feedbacks and I'll dig up that link to where you can dispute feedbacks. And I was able to successfully get one removed. And it was just through an online forum. David, before I go though, one other thing. And again, I don't know if eBay in your situation, it's a little tougher because it's a legitimate he said, she said, if there's no context from the other party. And if they're holding up, hey, yeah, this is what I ordered. And you're like, no, eBay's not really going to be able to step in and come to a conclusion one way or another. So they'll just leave it as is. But you can reach out on Twitter on Ask eBay. I have had success in getting feedback removed when the form and when a customer service rep has not been able to do it. I've been able to go on Twitter and I've been able to successfully get it removed through Twitter. So that's helpful. So that's another option if something happens to where you feel like you can you have a case. So again, thanks for tuning in. Back at it tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is Friday. Wow, tomorrow is Friday already. Can you believe that? Tomorrow is Friday. So have a great Thursday. Again, program note, no show on Saturday morning. I'll be set up at the Northern Illinois Card Show in Rockford. So if you're in that area, come see me. I'll have my dollar boxes. And then I'll be running to a birthday party and be out of town Saturday night as well. So no show Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I'll be back on Monday morning for a card show recap from Rockford. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great Thursday. hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you so much if you have. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Tell a friend and have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.